On the 2nd of August 1942, Convoy WS-521S sorties into the Irish Sea, her destination shrouded in secrecy. As 14 merchant vessels sail south, they will gradually be joined by a plethora of warships. These will escort the convoy as it traverses south towards Gibraltar and into the western Mediterranean. Aboard his flagship, the battleship HMS Nelson, Vice Admiral Edward Neville Seifert of Royal Navy Force F will assume overall command of the convoy and its escorts. It will be the most heavily escorted British convoy of the entire war. Their destination is the besieged island fortress of Malta, nestled in the central Mediterranean under the watchful eye of Axis aircraft and submarines. A quick word on this week's sponsor, War Thunder, a free-to-play military vehicle online combat game, available on PC, consoles and mobile. Play massive combined arms battles on over 100 major battlefields with over 70 million players around the world. Jump into the action in more than 2,500 accurate real-world vehicles from the 1920s to the present day, including tanks, aircraft, helicopters and ships from 10 playable countries. With 3 major updates every couple of months, there's always new maps and vehicles to enjoy. Thanks to the game's intuitive mouse aim mode, you can fly any aircraft using nothing more than mouse and keyboard. Enjoy rich PvE content including dynamic historical campaigns and solo missions. Detailed vehicles, realistic graphics and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation and Xbox or mobile by using my links in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles. This includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. This is available for a limited time only, so don't miss it. Force F will head south and pass west of Cape Finisterre, where it will begin vigorously exercising convoy-wide manoeuvres in preparation for the inescapable likelihood of enemy submarine and air attacks. At the same time, further to the south, Rear Admiral Lumley Lister carries out Operation Berserk with his 3 aircraft carriers, HMS Eagle, Indomitable and Victorious. This exercise will put their crew and pilots through their paces by testing their fighter direction techniques and interception tactics. Upon Operation Berserk's completion, Lister's carriers are to rendezvous with Force F before heading into the dangerous waters of the Mediterranean. Since 1940, the British island of Malta in the central Mediterranean has been a constant thorn in the side of the Axis powers. The island itself lies in a strong position from which to harass Italian and German naval supply routes, which connect Italy and their forces in North Africa, who are fighting an ongoing campaign with British Commonwealth armies. From Malta, the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy operate as best they can, given ever-worsening conditions, with squadrons of submarines, torpedo bombers, reconnaissance aircraft and fighters, aiming to hinder Axis operations in the Med. To maintain this constant nuisance, and the island's unyielding defiance, Malta relies almost entirely on naval convoys. These convoys bring essential provisions to continue military operations like fuel, munitions and equipment, but more importantly, they bring the fundamental necessities of life: food, water and medical supplies. Recognising Malta's importance and its role as a nuisance to their Mediterranean and African operations, the Italian Air Force, the Regia Aeronautica and the German Luftwaffe increased their air attacks on the island, whilst using submarines and aircraft to maintain an ever-tightening naval blockade around her. Of the 3,343 air raids on the island during the war, 2,031 are in 1942 alone. In spring 1942, Malta suffers through 154 successive days and nights under aerial bombardment. The little island of approximately 270,000 people is statistically the most heavily bombed country on Earth per square mile. Unsurprisingly, by mid-1942, food shortages on Malta are reaching a critical point, just as stockpiles of fuel, ammunition and spares become precariously low. Prior attempts to relieve the island, Operations Harpoon and Vigorous, ended in near-complete disaster, with little supplies reaching Malta's Grand Harbour. Malta's governor, Lord John Vereker Gort, believes that even with further rationing measures, the island will run out of food by the 7th of September 1942. The strategically vital island and its people have only 7 weeks left. The decision to send a relief convoy to Malta is taken by the British Chiefs of Staff on the 15th of June. Vice Admiral Neville Seifert will lead the operation, and together with his senior commanders, Rear Admirals Harold Burrough and Lumley Lister, he devises a plan. As a deception, the convoy is given the designation Whiskey Sierra, a prefix that indicates what is called a Winston Special, bound from home waters to the Suez Canal by way of the Cape of Good Hope. The core of the convoy is 14 merchantmen from both the UK and the United States. Their protection will be provided by a force centred around the 3 aircraft carriers, HMS Eagle, Victorious and Indomitable, and their air wings of Fairey Fulmars, Hawker Sea Hurricanes, Grumman Martlets and Fairey Albacore, alongside the 2 Nelson-class battleships Nelson and Rodney. Supporting these will be the 3 Dido-class anti-aircraft cruisers, Charybdis, Phoebe and Sirius, the light cruisers Nigeria, Kenya, Manchester and Cairo, as well as over 30 destroyers. This will be the largest and most well-protected Mediterranean convoy of the war. On the final approach to Malta itself, additional air protection will be provided by 136 land-based fighters, comprising Bristol Beaufighters and Supermarine Spitfires of the RAF's Malta Command. Standing in the convoy's way will be a dangerous and combined effort by Italian and German air and naval forces in the Mediterranean. Stationed across Sardinia and Sicily are over 500 aircraft of the Regia Aeronautica and the Luftwaffe. In the western and central Mediterranean, 21 submarines and 18 motor torpedo boats of the Kriegsmarine and Regia Marina lie in wait. Italian Admiral Alberto de Zara commands a powerful force of heavy cruisers, light cruisers and destroyers ready to sortie and engage the convoy as and when its major escorts depart before entering the narrow straits near Malta. Vice Admiral Seifert, his senior commanders and the men of his force are fully aware of the exceptional danger of the task ahead of them. The Royal Navy will likely lose many ships, but it is crucial for the Allied war effort in the Mediterranean and in North Africa that Malta does not fall. On the evening of the 9th of August, Force F is holding just 40 miles off Gibraltar, performing the delicate process of replenishment at sea, in shallower, calmer waters, and to avoid entanglements with U-boats. The trade-off of this is that they are visible from the Spanish shore. German and Italian agents relay the convoy's position and rough composition to Axis intelligence. For the British, this was to be expected. The force completes its refuelling, some vessels via replenishment at sea, and some stopping in Gibraltar, and enters the Mediterranean. The dangerous voyage to Malta has begun. Following the leaking of Force F's position as it lay off the Spanish coast, Luftwaffe and Regia Aeronautica reconnaissance flights are stepped up, and the convoy quickly picks up a number of tails, which monitor, record, and relay important pieces of information to their respective commands. At the same time, naval strike aircraft, mostly medium bombers in Sardinia and Sicily, are placed on high readiness, ensuring they are ready to launch at a moment's notice. As the Axis air forces are readying themselves to intercept the Pedestal convoy, so too are the Kriegsmarine and Regia Marina, whose submarines are sailing west from the central Mediterranean towards their aggressively placed patrol line to the north of Algiers, astride the convoy's route. East of the submarines, awaiting to the south of Sicily, are Axis motor torpedo boats, readying themselves to cause havoc on the convoy under the cover of darkness. The only force to not react to Force F's advance is the Regia Marina's surface force, commanded by Admiral Alberto de Zara, which for now remains in port. There are several reasons for this, but chief amongst them is the chronic shortage of fuel and the adversity to risk that plagues the Regia Marina's operational decision-making. As the evening arrives on the 10th of August, Force F continues steaming under the cover of darkness, so far unharassed. Meanwhile in Malta, another operation is commencing. Having arrived into Malta's Grand Harbour as part of the ill-fated Operation Harpoon, an earlier attempt to resupply the besieged island, the 2 merchantmen, Orari and Troilus, will hope to break out for Gibraltar, so that they may join resupply convoys in the future. Forming part of Operation Ascendant, the 2 merchantmen depart from Malta, escorted by the destroyers HMS Matchless and Badsworth. The 4 ships navigate the extensive minefields around Malta before setting a course for Cape Bon, the northeastern tip of Tunisia. Across their decks, they paint red and white Italian air recognition markings to confuse any potential attacker. Just as Operation Ascendant begins, further to the east in Egypt, another convoy departs. From Port Said, convoy MG3 begins its long journey west through the Mediterranean towards Malta. Unlike Pedestal and Ascendant, MG3 is only a decoy convoy, assembled to resemble a real one. The 3 merchantmen and their escorting 3 light cruisers and 10 destroyers serve but one purpose: draw attention and resources to the eastern Mediterranean and away from Pedestal. Rear Admiral Philip Vian aboard the cruiser HMS Cleopatra departs from the then Palestinian port of Haifa, accompanied by another cruiser, merchantmen and 5 destroyers. His orders are to sail west and join with MG3, adding weight to the convoy's perceived significance. Reconnaissance aircraft from both the Luftwaffe and Regia Aeronautica, operating from Crete, locate the force and quickly relay its position. However, no strike or response materializes. It appears that neither Axis power is taking the bait. Their focus will remain entirely on the approaching Force F of Operation Pedestal. At just before noon on the 11th of August, Force F reaches a point directly north of Algiers and continues zigzagging towards Malta. Fleet Air Arm fighters of HMS Eagle, Victorious and Indomitable fly combat air patrols around the fleet, watching for incoming aircraft. Axis reconnaissance aircraft continue to stalk the convoy as it continues east. Aircraft carrier HMS Furious and her escorts have broken off from the main convoy to head northeast to conduct Operation Bellows. Furious carries 42 regular RAF Supermarine Spitfire Mark V Bs, which will take off from her deck and fly ahead to Malta, bolstering the RAF Malta Command not only to provide air cover for their approach to the island later in the voyage, but also to bolster air defence of the island itself from enemy bombing attacks. Sending these land-based aircraft off the decks now will ensure they make it to Malta whether HMS Furious does or not. However, as they sail north, the lurking German U-boat U-73 soon spots the task group. As the U-boat tracks Furious and her escorts on a northeasterly course, she spots a bigger prize to her northwest, steaming east. U-73 has found Force F. Her captain promptly turns her north on an intercept course with the convoy and creeps forward. As she advances, she singles out the carrier HMS Eagle to the rear of the convoy's starboard side, and makes preparations to engage her with torpedoes. Creeping forward silently, U-73 must avoid the 6 escort destroyers that screen the ocean between them, searching for U-boats. Luckily for the German crew, they remain quiet enough to avoid detection, and the destroyers don't spot her approaching. By remaining below what is called the thermocline, an ocean layer that reflects active sonar and other acoustic signals, U-73 is able to forge on undetected, right underneath the destroyers. She drifts under the final escort destroyers, emerging safely within HMS Eagle's protective screen, and raises to periscope depth. As her periscope emerges from the water, she finds ahead of her the light cruiser HMS Charybdis, with Eagle astern of her, and a small destroyer further astern of Eagle. Beyond, U-73 spots 8 of the 14 merchantmen. She has struck gold. For now, her target remains the most valuable of the vessels, the unsuspecting aircraft carrier. When she is just 800 meters ahead of the U-boat, HMS Eagle begins to turn away to port in preparation to launch a flight of Sea Hurricanes for a combat air patrol. As Eagle settles onto her new bearing, U-73 fires a spread of 4 torpedoes in rapid succession before hastily diving deep to escape detection. Silently, the 4 torpedoes race towards the unsuspecting carrier. U-73 continues to dive for deep water, and hears 4 loud explosions ripple through the water above her. U-73 has scored 4 direct hits, all 4 torpedoes smashing into her hull, perfectly placed at 40-foot intervals along Eagle's port side. Water gushes in through all 4 holes, and the carrier rapidly begins to list to port, water now filling her port engines and boilers. As the carrier's list wortens at such a pace, the Sea Hurricanes on her flight deck slip into the sea alongside anything that isn't tied down. Eagle quickly begins to capsize, and so the order to abandon ship is issued. Hundreds of her crew now jump clear and swim away from the sinking vessel, but beneath her decks, hundreds more remain trapped. Just 8 minutes after the torpedoes hit, she rolls over and begins to disappear beneath the waves of the Mediterranean. With Chaos 2 miles to his rear, Vice Admiral Seifert quickly issues a series of successive orders. First, he orders Force F to turn hard to port, followed quickly by orders to starboard, and to continue doing so until the U-boat can be found. Around the sinking Eagle, the 6 destroyers led by the destroyer HMS Keppel begin a violent depth-charging frenzy around what they believe to be U-73's likely position. However, the submarine has long since escaped. Near to Eagle, the tug HMS Jaunty joins the destroyers Lookout and Laforet in pulling survivors from the water. Of Eagle's complement, 923 are rescued and 231 die at sea. With their pursuit futile, HMS Keppel and the other 5 destroyers return to Force F. They take on the survivors from Lookout and Laforet, and with Amazon and the tug Jaunty return back to Gibraltar. While Eagle's sinking has taken place, some 8 miles north of Force F, Furious completes the launch of her Spitfires. With her decks now empty and her part in Operation Pedestal at an end, the carrier and her 2 escorts also turn west towards Gibraltar. Meanwhile, Force F continues to zigzag along its course, and as evening nears, the threat of enemy aircraft seems slim, but the threat of submarines grows, with more reports of submarines to the Convoy south coming in by the minute. Hoping to avoid them, Seifert diverts Force F north. However, the danger now is not from submarines. With night approaching, his force's radars detect enemy aircraft approaching from the east, and fast. As these reports are promptly passed onto Force F's remaining carriers, their fighters are scrambled in rapid succession. Soon, the skies around the force will be littered with Fleet Air Arm fighters, Sea Hurricanes, Fairey Fulmars, and Grumman Martlets, the British name for the American Lend-Leased F-4F Wildcat. Approaching from the east, flying in a tight arrowhead, some 5 Ju-88s prepare to wreak havoc on the convoy ahead of them. As they enter into the range of Force F's warships, each ship's anti-aircraft complement ignites, creating a seemingly impassable flak barrage. The bombers, however, seemingly unfazed, forge on, and fly into and through the barrage, with only one taking any damage. All 5 Ju-88s continue to scream in towards HMS Victorious, looking to deny Seifert of another of his precious aircraft carriers. Victorious, with Rear Admiral Leicester aboard, sees the Ju-88s approaching and turns hard to port, and then back to starboard, hoping to avoid the bombs he knows are coming. Each Ju-88 drops its payload before turning away and making their escape to the northeast. As they turn, their ordnance falls towards the carrier, but thanks to violent manoeuvres they straddle the ship. Large plumes of water erupt either side of the carrier, covering her deck in water, but none land close enough to do any damage. With these Ju-88s withdrawing, chased down by Sea Hurricanes and Fulmars, radars detect more approaching aircraft. This time, 6 HE-111s and 20 Ju-88s approach. However, these crews are less determined than the last. After 2 bombers succumb to Force F's anti-aircraft fire, some of the remainder drop their payloads far too early so as to turn away from the flak, and some are dissuaded from attacking entirely. Force F has survived its first air attacks entirely unscathed. However, the experienced Seifert knows that this is only the first of many assaults his convoy will have to defend. This is just the beginning. With the sky clear of enemy aircraft and the carrier fighters returning to their carriers, night sets in. Force F will be spared from air attack until the following morning. So, whilst sonar operators remain vigil, the force's anti-aircraft crews grab what rest and respite they can, in spite of knowing that they could be torpedoed unexpectedly at any second. Meanwhile, in the eastern Mediterranean, Rear Admiral Vian notes that his decoy convoy, MG3, is not attracting the attention he nor the planners of Pedestal had hoped for. With this, he detaches from the convoy and sails north from MG3 towards the occupied island of Rhodes. MG3 splits into 3 smaller groups, which turn around and make for the ports of Haifa, Port Said and Beirut. Their decoy mission has failed. At midnight, Force F is 160 miles from Eagle's sinking. The destroyers which had detached from Force F to return to Gibraltar continued to sail west. As they press forward under the cover of darkness, destroyer HMS Wolverine detects an unknown radar contact on the surface directly ahead of her. Wolverine's radar operators identify this contact to be a submarine, and assume it to be the enemy. Wolverine's skipper, Lieutenant Commander Peter Gretton, gives the orders to approach the contact, but warns his gunners not to fire, but instead to maintain the element of surprise. Closing the distance, Gretton identifies the vessel as a hostile submarine. He orders flank speed, and Wolverine steams straight at the unsuspecting submarine. The Italian submarine Dagobah has no idea of the presence of the Royal Navy destroyer flying in towards her from her flank. She may never have known until it was too late. HMS Wolverine smashes at full speed squarely amidships into the submarine Dagobah. Her bow slices through the submarine's hull like a hot knife through butter. Dagobah is torn into two and sinks quickly. Satisfied that this submarine has been dealt with, Wolverine continues west and limps on to Gibraltar. As dawn approaches, the small force of Operation Ascendant passes north of the Tunisia-Algerian border and remove their Italian recognition markings, as they will soon come within range of Gibraltar-based RAF aircraft. This small force would have been in a precarious position had, to its northwest, Force F not been continuing to plough its way east and attracting all of the Axis attention. Back at Force F, Seifert receives updated intelligence concerning the likelihood of enemy submarines some 50 miles east, north of the Jalata Islands. These reports, though accurate, do little to warn him of another much more immediate and closer threat. Reports of torpedoes in the water begin to flood in to Seifert. This time, lookouts aboard the cruiser Kenya spot 3 torpedoes heading directly for her from a submarine they had no idea was there. With quick thinking, her skipper, Captain Alfred Russell, orders a hard turn into the torpedo's path, threading his vessel in between them. Several destroyers move to hunt down the submarine, but it has again dived deep to escape, undetectable by their sonars. They will again return empty-handed. As Seifert's force contends with the ever-present submarine danger in the eastern Mediterranean, efforts are made to keep the decoy value of MG3 alive now that its ships are returning to their ports. Fake radio messages are transmitted to and from the convoy, while RAF aircraft fly over the convoy's now fake position and drop flares to fool any distant vessel or reconnaissance flight. Yet, to some surprise, neither the Italians nor the Germans react in any way to this deception. They may simply not have any forces nearby. If so, frustratingly, had MG3 been a real convoy, it might have made it to Malta. The decoy operation comes to an end, and Operation Ascendant is on the home stretch towards Gibraltar. Force F continues to press on through dangerous waters. As the sun rises, Seifert's expectation of more air attacks comes true, as lookouts across Force F report enemy aircraft approaching from the east. With carrier fighters already airborne, orders are quickly given for those to leave the convoy and intercept the enemy bombers before they near their targets. With these orders, Sea Hurricanes lead the charge, racing ahead and quickly falling onto the tails of the approaching Ju-88s. In the opening moments, as the two forces collide, 3 Ju-88s are sent spiralling into the sea, as Sea Hurricanes rake them with machine gun fire. Witnessing their squadron mates being mauled, several more Ju-88s jettison their payloads early and turn away. However, 6 Ju-88s press on through the fighter screen and drop their bombs amongst the forts. Fortunately for Force F, all again miss. Plumes of water explode into the sky around Seifert's ships, but again no damage is recorded. The fighters of the Fleet Air Arm quickly reorganise and give chase to the 6 Ju-88s. Manoeuvring onto the retreating bombers' tails, the Sea Hurricanes hit the Ju-88s, and a further 2 are sent crashing into the sea. As the last 4 bombers escape, the destroyer HMS Fury's sonar detects a contact to the south, another submarine, the Italian submarine Bryn. Fury and another destroyer Foresight are dispatched to investigate, but the submarine will evade them. Seifert's convoy is being shadowed not only by enemy aircraft, but Axis submarines Warchik, U-73 and Bryn. German and Italian naval and air forces are fully aware of Force F's position, and preparations for further, larger attacks are being made. The Royal Navy and the merchant vessels are running the gauntlet, and will have to fight hard and likely lose many more ships to resupply the strategically critical besieged island of Malta. The enemy attacks subside for a few hours in the morning. However, at just before noon, just as Force F is passing north of the Algeria-Tunisian border, the short period of calm for the cruise is shattered. Radars across the force detect a large wave of 85 aircraft approaching from the east. And if you'd like to watch the next part straight away, all 4 episodes are already available to watch on our Patreon at patreon.com/The Operations Room. You can get access to exclusive benefits such as early access to videos and series, completely ad and sponsor free. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation and Xbox or mobile by using my links in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles. This is available for a limited time only, so don't miss it.